Hello, good morning, everyone. Today, I'm so excited again to welcome back Blair Vega Norfolk, the founder and managing director of Biome Australia, with ASX ticker code BIO, Bravo India October, a company focused on developing, commercializing live biotherapeutics and complementary medicines, and is here today to share with me their exciting half-year results. And we also do a bit of a deep dive into some updates regarding Biome's financial performance and expansion plans. And good morning, Blair. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me, Gia.
Thank you. Actually, for people who don't know, we've already met before 6 months ago. And in fact, same time when I was in Australia. And most importantly, I think something really big happened in your family a couple of days ago. Do you want to quickly share that?
Yes, look, we think of ourselves as a family business. My wife and I gave birth to our second child about 5 days ago. So it's very fresh, very new, reminding ourselves on it's not quite as easy as we remember it being the first few weeks or months, but very pleased to be being able to share an update on our half year results with you from my home office.
Excellent. Well, look, let's dive right into it. First and foremost, I want to welcome you back. It was really, really great to catch up after 6 months. And now, what's even better is that I have been informed, and I've looked through your deck, that Biome recently reported their first net profit. I mean, I'm really curious. What are the key drivers behind this milestone?
So we've been really working toward this for a long time. So I've been doing what I do now for 13 years, and we founded Biome off the back of the previous R&D and innovation IP development company prior to Biome in 2018. When
Mhm.
we listed on the ASX into the, I suppose, mid-COVID transition of the market, so late 2021 in November, small cap healthcare companies were, I suppose, finding it reasonably tough to get interest from the market, and investors, I suppose, thesis or the way they were looking at growth companies had changed. Certainly in the tech world, everyone knows about that. So we really put it to ourselves to not cut our costs to limit growth, but just to be very careful with our spending, with our OpEx line, and really drive that growth as carefully as we could, with the idea of getting to break even, positive EBITDA, and now net profit as quickly as we could. So,
Mm.
at the point of IPO, we raised $8 million. We told the market this will be enough money to get us to profitability. And surely we achieved that milestone now with the IPO funds.
Excellent. Something that caught my attention is that during you made it, that's probably one of the most critical decisions. You decided not to cut your operational costs, but rather looking at, and do you think that was a huge catalyst to driving you towards net profit, that you didn't scale back, but you kept thinking big?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're very confident in our business model.
Yep.
Patients and customers, whether they be pharmacists, integrative doctors, or patients, consumers using our products, speak to us. We know how well the products are received, how well they're working, and
Mhm.
our growth numbers have been consistent. We've averaged about 77% growth over the last 3 years from a low base, but now we have
Mhm.
quite meaningful revenue and net profit. So being confident in our strategy, confident in our business model, and we have been rewarded by the market and investors for doing what we say we're going to do, not putting our
Yeah.
foot wrong, not changing our strategy or, getting concerned when the market gets tough, but doubling down and, knowing what we're trying to achieve. And, we have a very special business and a very, very special opportunity in Biome Australia and our brand activated probiotics. So we focused on the key areas of value, educating doctors, pharmacists, and doubling down on service and support when everyone else was pulling back. A lot of the other brands in the complementary medicine market, whether they be probiotic brands, vitamin brands, a lot of them reduced their sales teams, cut their marketing budgets in an effort to, curve their operating costs in a tough market. We
Mhm.
managed to grow through all the inflationary pressures, and our sales have only been positively impacted by, being close to a recession. In that healthcare is something people will always pay for, even in tough times. So I suppose we backed our strategy, and we've been rewarded by the market for, I suppose, overachieving on what we say we're going to deliver and not putting a foot wrong.
Excellent. You seem pretty humble to have your maiden first net profit. You're so calm. I love it. Now, look, with gross margins, I know it's improved to 61%. For me, that's staggering. I mean, what changes help drive this margin expansion?
Look, with meaningful margin expansion, it takes time. And
Mhm.
again, most companies in our industry, their business model is driven by price, discounts, and deals. Our brand, Activated Probiotics, is a premium brand. It's a professional brand. We don't utilize a discount or a deal strategy. We're selling products that provide outcomes and solutions. They're not
Mhm.
products with a margin. They're meaningful products that are helping patients with different conditions. So as a result of that, we've been able to really focus on supply chain, on our cost of goods inputs. We're getting volume improvements in our buying price on raw materials as we keep growing. We're doing quite large volume now, so around a run rate of around 1 million boxes a year at the moment.
Mhm.
We've been able to optimize our logistics and fulfillment as well. So, getting packing containers right to the top, making sure that we're, getting the best rates, but most of all, it's that negotiating power that we've now got. So we work quite hard to not give it away on the pharmacy side, and we're maximizing our buying power on the input side with our supplier partners. So since pre-IPO, we were running at around 52% gross margin. We've steadily
Mhm.
increased it 2 or 3% each year. I believe now we're around 61%, and our goal is for it to continue to increase. We don't expect as we grow for that margin to erode, which is quite common in our industry.
Do you think that the margins have a ceiling to them?
Sure, absolutely. Look, I mean, probiotics is our space. They're very premium, expensive products to manufacture. Um, Short of us going into fermentation ourselves to make our own products, which is not on the pipeline at this point in time. There will be a ceiling. I won't be brave enough to call out what it is, but from my perspective, I'd love to see that margin grow towards 65% as a personal goal for me, and I'll be working with my CFO to constantly chip away at it over the coming years.
Well, look, this makes me, I'm quietly confident it's true that every single number you've called, your team hasn't missed it, and neither have you in the
No
last four
pressure.
years. So, I mean, past performance dictates future performance. So, I think we're standing in good stead. Well, in that case, help me out. I'm really now, obviously, we've talked about some really positive numbers. Projecting into the second half of financial year 25, like, what's your expectations based on this momentum?
Yeah, look, so Biome has seasonality to its business.
Okay.
The summer break, our main 60 to 70% of our sales volume goes through community pharmacy. So
Hmm.
we have roughly 6,000 distribution points in Australia now. Roughly half of those are pharmacies, so three of 6,000 of the pharmacies in the network. Those pharmacists take annual leave at Christmas. They have kids that are at school. So December and January are the slowest months for everyone in our industry.
Sure.
We then turn to February, which turns back to growth, and then March through to October is the most
Hmm.
exciting time for Biome. We have our rapid growth. The probiotic industry in general is driven by the cold and flu season. So when people are out there getting their flu jabs, which we've already seen the data is already happening, we're going to have another, disappointingly for the community, but I suppose positively for Biome, it's going to be another record cold and flu season.
Mm.
The people's immune systems are still recovering from all that time in lockdown, and that will drive the probiotic market. Key buying patterns are really around gut health and immune health, but the
Hmm.
rest of our product portfolio grows through that period as well. So expect Q4 to be our record quarter. It is every year, and we see really strong growth into Q1 as well, FY26. We have new pharmacies coming on board. We recently announced over the last 6 months, part of our Vision 27 3-year strategic plan is to grow distribution from 5,000 to 8,000. So we've already
Hmm.
announced in the last few weeks that in the last 6 months, we've already increased it from 5,000 to 6,000 distribution points, putting us
Yep.
well ahead of that plan or that component of the Vision 27.
Yep.
So really, it's just putting our heads down, continue to develop our pharmacies and our practitioners, and hopefully the market will really appreciate and reward us for the significant growth that we'll get through half to FY25.
Tremendous. Which brings me again now to this part. Something that I've noticed about you is that you're actually very brave, and I guess willing to make some pretty big forecasts because you recently unveiled some really ambitious targets for the next 3 years, which got me quite surprised. $85 million dollars in sales by financial year 27. We're not even halfway through 25. I guess, the way I see it is that historically, only Japanese companies really make such big projections, and even with their famous century year plans, right? With their
Yeah.
long-term planning. I'm really curious. Can you please elaborate on these targets, why you've taken such a bold and bullish stance? And I guess, does it mean that because you haven't missed a number in 4 years, this is why you can back yourself in so much?
I think that's what's allowed the market to trust that we can deliver this outcome. So 75
Mm,
to 85 million of cumulative sales for 3 years. The last 3 years prior, we did 23 to 24 million. So what is it? It's roughly 3 to 3.5 times the 3 years before. It's a nice
hmm
number. I think it works out to a CAGR, a compounded annual growth rate of about 45% for the next 3 years. The company's current compound annual growth rate is over 70%.
Yep.
So if we're at 70, we need to achieve 45. It's not quite that simple. We know our business and our customers intimately. We know pharmacy better than most of the pharmacy groups know pharmacy. We understand what's important to our customers. They want a unique product without it being sold through the grocery chains, not on Amazon or online stores. We're providing a really high value reason for a patient to come to an independent pharmacy and to keep coming back. We're not
Mm,
selling it down the road to a deep discounter. And being that it's a premium product with really high repeat purchase rates, we've been able to, build the rapport and the support from our pharmacy chains to be able to get on board that growth journey with us. So I had a conversation with Terry White Chemmart recently, and I'm not going to name names. This is just an anecdotal feedback, but they want to work with us to double our business with them over the next 2 or 3 years. So we see huge growth potential left in the market. The best way I could give, I suppose, the market a back of the envelope is we have 6,000 distribution points. That's roughly half of the addressable market in the Australian market.
hmm
Of that 6,000, they're about 40% developed. We still have a huge amount of development opportunity in the existing channels of pharmacies, integrative doctors, and naturopaths. Then we have another, doubling down on the market size in Australia before we even mention overseas markets that we're working in.
Excellent. And now, I mean, let's segue into like distribution, right? So that's absolutely all growth is led through distribution, sales, and marketing, right? We can't save our way to prosperity. So
Yep.
I'm really curious now. You want to hit 8,000 locations and you've already hit 6,000. So I'm just wondering now, what's your strategy to go from 6 to 8 when you have said that you're already about 40% addressable market in the country?
Yeah, so I mean that's a really interesting question because I think the success of our activated probiotics brand has really created some ripples and waves through the industry. We know that all of our competitors are certainly watching our scan data. We are the
Mhm.
highest growth complementary medicine brand in Australia in pharmacy, and we have been for 4 years. We've been the number one growth brand, bar
Mm,
none. And as a result of that, it's made it quite straightforward for us to increase distribution when we want to. We see it almost, I don't want to come across as overconfident, but we've built a profit generating machine for pharmacies that
sure.
is also really driving that impact piece that our products are helping
Mm,
patients in ways that they haven't had a product to help them before. So as a result of that, getting to the 8,000 isn't the challenge. It's which stores and when. So this financial year, the plan was to turn the tap off and to
yeah.
keep developing the existing accounts, growing our same store sales and our sell through. And then, moving into about November this year, I had a quiet chat with my sales team leaders, and in a short amount of time, in the last 3 months, they've signed up an extra 1,000 accounts. So
Wow.
it's not getting there. It's when we do it because if you grow too fast, it costs too much as well.
Yeah.
So for us to add another 5,000 accounts in the next 18 months, we could probably do that, but then I need to double my sales team, blow out my OpEx line. So it's very much a
Mm.
Slowly, work through the distribution that you've got, keep developing it. Once it reaches a certain threshold, we then add on a couple of hundred new accounts, a couple of hundred new accounts. And by making the product a little bit harder to get, not quite as available, it also really drives the interest on, our pharmacies, our practitioners to treat it as a really high value offering. They don't think about activated probiotics like they do all the other products in their store. A lot of them really understand that there is a product for every patient that walks through their door, whether it's
Mhm.
for someone's cholesterol reduction, whether it's for someone's gingivitis or cavities in their teeth, whether it's for depression, mental health, asthma, skin conditions like acne and eczema. We have clinically proven products to support those different conditions. So as we grow, we will chip away at an ad, but really important to me as a leader to make sure that we're not growing ahead of where we're at and making sure that we grow in the right way by not having too many zeros along the way.
Yeah, and right, I guess that's the challenge, right? Like you know, a wonderful CEO has a certain ambition and aggression, but at the same time, you've also got to be
Got to
very,
turn the tap off sometimes.
yeah.
If you don't, then you lose control. And I think a perfect example is the Blackmores story into China. So incredible Australian brand, it's been around for such a long time, been so successful for so many years. Their revenue exploded through 2015 to 2020 when they got picked up by the Daigou channel mainly into China. They
Mm.
went from roughly 500 million turnover to 900 plus
Wow.
in a short amount of time. But the problem is, that tap got taken away from them. They lost control of it. And then when it got turned off by someone else, it really hurt their business when the revenue plummeted back down to 600 million. And then unfortunately, when Blackmore sold, it was on a downward trajectory, not on a growth journey. So
Mm.
for me, it's about carefully managing risk, carefully managing growth to maintain high levels of growth, but do it in a careful way that we don't lose control of the brand, lose control of the product. And in doing so, doing a lot of conservative things well add up to high growth. I suppose that's the best way to look at it.
And I think it's often reflected in your share price, right? I understand when I first met you 6 months ago, we did see a steady growth in your share price, and in fact, unlike perhaps some of the competitors or the smaller players in the market, your share price has actually held up all the way
Yeah.
through. We haven't seen any significant troughs or anything.
Yeah, look, it's definitely been healthy. I mean, there's been some consolidation at times after it's had a really strong run, but we
Hmm.
feel like certainly with the 3-year forecast that we put to market, there's absolutely, still a lot of opportunity. However, it has performed well over the last year and a half, and it's certainly pleasing to see that the market is rewarding us for, steady growth and outcomes and results. And now with net profit and 4 quarters of positive EBITDA, we're getting a lot of interest from the big funds as well. So it's a whole new journey for me as a CEO now,
Hmm.
presenting the business to small, medium, and some quite large funds around the world. And it's a very different investor base that are taking a lot of interest in Biome.
Excellent. And look, I know that you have actually made some, I mean, we've specifically talked about Australia. But I also know you've made a lot of inroads into the international markets like the UK and Canada. And I guess I'm really particularly interested in hearing about your strategies now on how you're further expanding your distribution across into these international markets. And last time I spoke to you, you mentioned, I mean, that your sales force was already international. So could you expand a bit more about this for our members?
Oh, look, with pleasure. And I think any astute investor will absolutely want to see that a business like this can scale. I suppose it's become the 101. You can do well in your home market, but how well can you go beyond the borders? And we've taken a lot of, I suppose, input and guidance from some of the mistakes that others have made before us. So, there are two very large vitamin companies in Australia. One I've already mentioned, and the other one had a famous failure in the USA, losing about 100 million in 1 year, and then had a triumphant exit for that business in a very successful M&A a year or two later. But there was some really interesting learnings from Blackmore's experience into China and the other company I mentioned, experience in
Mhm.
the USA. So Biome has a few strategic advantages in our business model and our distribution model. So our brand activated probiotics is practitioner only. It's a
Hmm.
professional brand, it's a premium brand, it's a higher value proposition than, a multivitamin or a generic multi-strain probiotic product. As a result, it means we can leverage those relationships with health professionals to
Mm.
gain trust. Our
Yeah.
business is all about trust. We do clinical trials to gain trust of doctors and pharmacists. We do clinical trials to get support from the TGA for health claims. And then we build trust with consumers and patients because the products work and because we
Mm.
are, furthering the evidence and the education of probiotics. So 2, 3 years ago, we started that international journey. We got pulled into the UK and Irish markets through the independent professional medical channel. So
Mm.
doctors and some natural medicine professionals started prescribing the product. So we put it in a distributor, one in Ireland, one in the UK. Once we'd learned and developed our scale model, we've now replicated that in Canada and New
Yeah.
Zealand and
Yeah.
looking to see now how we can do it much faster and much lower cost. So the high level model for me is I like to replicate what we've done in Australia at about 30 to 40% of the cost of what it costs to do in Australia. We can run satellite teams in these markets of sales and education staff supported by head office in Melbourne, which are essentially like our shared services. You've got finance, product development, the technical teams, all the regulatory teams, all the marketing team, all the support back office staff operate all the global markets from Melbourne, but then the
Hmm.
local sales staff do the relationships and the business development with the pharmacies. So after testing the market, we develop trust of health professionals, we gain initial sales traction, then we launch into pharmacies, not until we've already had a presence for a while. Canada, which was the most interesting one, we launched in September. I did a soft launch on the ground there at an event myself for 3 weeks. It was the first time I'd been at a booth at an industry event for a little while, but I really enjoyed being on the ground. And the response from the local pharmacy and health food and medical profession was so overwhelming. We went straight forward with I suppose, our retail rollout because the competition is very limited in the Canadian market. The quality of health professionals and their understanding of these type of products is very sophisticated. Probably the only one that might be higher than Australia. And
Hmm.
the credibility of these type of products is quite strong in that market. So we go into a market, we win over the health professionals, call them our influencers, but they've got a health qualification rather than an Instagram following. And we leverage that to gain their recommendation to become the most trusted professional brand. And then we leverage that trust to, into our wider marketing and distribution efforts. And it's something that we now have seen we can rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And we look forward to really sharing some meaningful results on those various international markets before the end of FY25.
I mean, look, I'm just doing my maths here. So what we're saying is that, look, Canada's got 50 plus million people. The UK has 60 plus million people. So the total addressable market really is you're talking about four times the size of Australia at 27 million. And you're hoping to basically go into these markets, but at 40% cost reduction in operational costs. Am I right?
That's the goal, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, that's exciting. That is truly exciting because obviously based in Europe myself as well, the awareness and the growth of health, wellness, and supplementary medicines is staggering.
Yep.
Like you said, it's a very sophisticated market here already. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. What's different about Biome is we go for the more advanced markets rather than just the volume markets. So
Mm,
all of our, if you call them competitors, that we don't have competitors at a product level, but I suppose other brands in the industry, they're completely fixated on the USA and China. And there's
yeah.
nothing wrong with that. They're the biggest volume markets. They're also the most generic and they have the lowest education around our type of products. The
Mm,
best markets in the world per capita for probiotics are Italy, Japan, Korea, Australia, France, Canada, and then probably Germany as well. So there's
mm.
some really key markets that no one else seems to care about because they're more advanced markets that we see we can come in and sort of lead the pack from day one with the type of clinical evidence and the way we communicate. We're not ignoring the volume markets. That would be silly. USA will definitely be down the track. Our 10-year plan involves three core regions. Asia
Hmm.
Pacific, Europe, and North America. I know I just mentioned about 80% of the GDP in the world. However, Europe is a lot of smaller geographies with more advanced populations. So we see all of those little pockets are so unique. The language, the culture between Germany and between the UK, it's worlds apart, even though it's not. So, we will have the UK team run the European territories, the
Sure.
North American team and the Australian team, being able to, really support those markets for growth.
And to have the financial discipline right now that you're developing within your income, like right now before you enter these significant markets. You know what this
Yeah.
reminds me of? I need to stay objective, but however, your strategy is very reminiscent of the actual larger pharmaceutical companies where they're brave. Obviously, their distribution channels are purely only through physicians.
Yeah.
And they invest very heavily in clinical trials and R&D. And most importantly, they're not afraid to play in the fringes, those fringe markets first, where really that's actually some of their most, I wouldn't say profitable, but that's where they really thrive. And the brave really do eat the world.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very kind compliment. The difference between us and a big pharma is our R&D bill's a lot smaller. We work really hard to convince universities to do clinical trials with us at well below cost price, put it that way. We're bringing really
Mm.
exciting novel IP in probiotics that can reduce depressed mood, that can reduce asthma events, that can, support female health concerns like bacterial vaginosis, thrush, UTIs. They're really exciting propositions. So once we convince universities to come on that journey with us, we're able to, get that pharmaceutical style evidence, but
Mhm.
supporting biosafety profile in a probiotic.
Wonderful. And I have one final question. I always love to turn back to the human side of business because often, we focus so much on the operational side of it. So, look, Biome really is a founder-led company, and our investors, they often bet on the jockey and not just the horse. And developing key people within Biome is especially even more important as you gain this foothold across Europe and North America. So I'm curious now, how are you developing your people so that it's not just reliant on the CEO's vision?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a really fair question as well. And certainly a founder-led business. I mean, that's the biggest advantage and risk or challenge with any, I suppose, startup, isn't it? You want that passionate founder,
Yep.
but are they listening to advice? Are they able to delegate? Are they able to learn? I think I've had 13 years now, so I feel like the transition to more of a corporate CEO with passion is probably where I feel like I fit into the market now. But we've done
Hmm.
something that we really wanted to do with people and culture in Biome. And firstly, we're a B Corp organization, which means the company is, we audit ourselves well above the standard requirements of a public company with
Yep.
social responsibility, with, energy inputs, with how we look after people and incentivize our staff.
Yep.
And a key point of that is we haven't wanted to, as first mover in our space, bring in some seasoned executives that may already have ideas on how things should be done.
Yep.
So we've invested really heavily in developing our own people. This has been something that's been successfully done previous to us by some of the other largest companies in our space, in the practitioner only or professional vitamin space. We've developed 10 key line managers. They've all
Hmm.
been promoted from roles beneath where they're at right now. They've been trained, they've been, taught to be self-sustaining. They don't need to be micromanaged by me. So I suppose over the last 2 years, those managers now work in their own silos. As we call them, like each of them is their own business unit. So there'll be 10 managers, and each of them have five staff under them now. We're about 50 people, and each of those business units, whether it be marketing, whether it be sales management or research and development, they operate in their own little silo. They report back to me. And that's allowed me to be able to travel the world, find new IP, find new products, develop relationships with distributors, and actually, as a CEO, be head of sales to go and add value. And 2 years ago, I couldn't leave the office for an extended period of time to go grow the business. Now I can be out of the office, for weeks or even months at a time now, going and doing, high level business development and growth. And I think that's where investors should want me to be spending my time.
And particularly, I think, again, it's been reflected in all the achievements, right?
Hopefully, yes, and we'll need to continue doing what we say we're going to do.
Excellent. Well, look, Blair, as normal, would it be possible for us, if any of our members or investors or our subscribers have any questions regarding Biome, that they forward it through to us, info@eastcoastresearch.com.au, and we'll forward them onto your team to handle. Is that okay?
Yep, with pleasure, absolutely. And we also have a direct email, corporate@biomeaustralia.com, but happy to receive feedback or questions anyway. And yeah, I don't really appreciate you taking the time for a chat today.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll probably see you in 6 months. Who knows?
Hopefully.